Chapter 1: The Vision of a Young King. Alexander's vision took shape early, influenced by his father, King Philip II, and his teacher, the philosopher Aristotle. Philip's achievements set a high bar, transforming Macedonia into a formidable power and uniting Greece through both diplomacy and force. Philip's assassination, however, left Alexander as the 20-year-old king of a powerful but still fractious region. Unlike Philip, whose ambitions were primarily territorial, Alexander's dreams reached further. Inspired by the myths of Homer and the teachings of Aristotle, he imagined an empire that would blend the cultures of the East and West, transcending borders and identities. His goal was to create an empire for the ages, one that would establish a legacy of unity and shared prosperity. Chapter 2: Building a Strategy for Conquest. Alexander knew that his vision would require a unique strategy, one that blended military strength with diplomatic foresight. From the start, he employed a disciplined, highly flexible approach to warfare, using a multi-layered strategy that could adapt to various enemies, terrains, and situations. His army was trained in the Macedonian phalanx formation, wielding long sarissas, spears, and supported by a potent cavalry that Alexander personally led. In every engagement, Alexander aimed to dominate through decisive maneuvers. He was a master of timing, often leading from the front lines to inspire his troops and to assess the battlefield firsthand. He encouraged his men to believe they were not only fighting for territory but for a cause larger than themselves, a cause that would unite them with the lands and people they encountered. Chapter 3: The Conquest of Persia. Alexander's grandest campaign began in 334 BCE, when he crossed the Hellespont with an army of 40,000 men. His strategy was not just about winning battles. It was about dismantling the Persian Empire and replacing it with a unified realm under his rule. The Persian Empire was vast and well-defended, but its regional satraps operated with relative autonomy, which made it vulnerable to Alexander's strategy of dividing and conquering. Alexander quickly demonstrated his tactical genius at the Battle of Granicus, where he defeated the local Persian forces and set the tone for his campaign. His strategy was to eliminate each of Persia's strongholds one by one, cutting off the empire's resources and securing each region under his control. This method allowed him to maintain supply lines and consolidate his holdings, laying the groundwork for a lasting empire. Chapter 4: Diplomacy and Cultural Integration. Unlike previous conquerors, Alexander saw diplomacy and cultural exchange as essential to his vision. In Egypt, he proclaimed himself the son of Zeus Ammon, aligning himself with Egyptian religious beliefs and winning over the people. His founding of Alexandria established a city that would become a cornerstone of cultural exchange, knowledge, and commerce. As he moved further east, Alexander adopted elements of Persian dress and customs, encouraging his officers and soldiers to marry local women. He saw these marriages as symbolic bridges between Greek and Eastern cultures, aiming to create a unified ruling class that would respect and govern both cultures. He promoted the concept of a universal empire, where Greeks and non-Greeks would coexist and contribute to a shared civilization. His open-minded approach earned him the loyalty of various local leaders, and his policy of integrating Persian nobles into his administration demonstrated his commitment to building a multicultural empire. Though controversial among his Macedonian followers, Alexander's strategy of cultural fusion aimed to establish a durable empire that respected its diverse population. Chapter 5: The Defining Moment at Gaugamela. Alexander's vision faced its greatest test at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BCE. Darius III had gathered an army vastly larger than Alexander's, with troops from every corner of the Persian Empire. Gaugamela was an open plain that favored Darius's numerical advantage, but Alexander turned the terrain to his advantage. Using a bold strategy, Alexander directed his phalanx and cavalry in a series of feints and maneuvers designed to stretch Darius's forces and create a gap in the center. Seizing the opportunity, he launched a direct assault at Darius's position, causing the Persian king to flee and leaving the Persian forces in disarray. This victory at Gaugamela cemented Alexander's control over the Persian Empire and demonstrated his capacity for both strategic brilliance and audacious risk-taking. With Darius defeated, Alexander became the de facto ruler of Persia. However, he did not rest on his victory. Instead, he worked to integrate Persian administration and culture into his empire. Gaugamela was more than a battle. It was a turning point that allowed Alexander to reshape the political and cultural landscape of his newly acquired lands. Chapter 6. Pushing the limits in India. Alexander's drive to expand his empire led him to the borders of India, where he encountered the powerful kingdom of King Porus. The Battle of the Hydaspes in 326 BCE was one of Alexander's hardest-fought victories, with war elephants and unfamiliar tactics testing his army in new ways. Alexander's strategy in India shifted to accommodate the vast and diverse lands he was conquering. Rather than relying solely on military might, he sought alliances with local leaders, allowing them to maintain their rule in exchange for loyalty. His marriage to Roxana, a Bactrian princess, was part of this strategy, symbolizing unity between Macedonian and local nobility. However, as he pushed deeper into India, Alexander faced resistance. Not from his enemies but from his own men, who were weary after years of continuous campaigning. Despite his vision of pushing even further east, he was forced to turn back, marking the first time his ambition had met its limit. Nevertheless, his Indian campaign left a lasting impact, establishing connections and trade routes that would benefit the empire for generations. Chapter 7. Governing the world's largest empire. Returning to Babylon, Alexander turned his attention to the monumental task of governing his vast empire. He initiated plans to establish new cities, develop trade routes, and promote Hellenistic culture. His vision of an empire that embraced multiple cultures required an administrative structure that could bridge language, religious, and ethnic differences. Chapter 9. The Foundations of a Multicultural Empire. Alexander's empire was designed as a bridge between cultures, a place where Greek, Persian, Egyptian, and Indian customs could intermingle. His policy of multiculturalism was revolutionary for the time, rooted in a desire not only to conquer lands but to forge connections. He encouraged his soldiers to marry local women, creating family ties that strengthened alliances. This fusion of cultures became the hallmark of his empire, evident in the art, architecture, and administrative systems that blended Greek forms with Eastern elements. He envisioned an empire united by shared values and governance, introducing Greek practices into each region but allowing local traditions to thrive. His court became a symbol of this unity, filled with advisors and officials from all corners of his empire. He believed that his reign could only be secured by mutual respect among the diverse peoples he ruled, and his model influenced governance for centuries to come. Chapter 10. The Alexandria Legacy. The cities Alexander founded, especially Alexandria in Egypt, were designed as cultural and economic hubs that would unify his territories. Each city had a distinct Greek layout, with wide avenues, marketplaces, theaters, and temples. But they also incorporated elements of the local culture, making them places where Greek and Eastern influences could coexist. Alexandria became the most famous of these cities, a vibrant center of learning, trade, and culture. The Great Library of Alexandria, though established after his death, embodied his vision of a world unified by knowledge. Scholars from Greece, Persia, Egypt, and beyond gathered there, sharing ideas and advancing fields like philosophy, mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. The city attracted the best minds from across his empire, symbolizing Alexander's dream of a realm that would foster intellectual and cultural growth. Chapter 11. The Decline of Unity and the Rise of Division. Alexander's untimely death in 323 BCE threw his empire into chaos. With no clear successor, his generals, known as the Diadochi, each claimed parts of the empire, dividing it into separate kingdoms. The unity that Alexander had worked so hard to create was shattered, and his dream of a unified, multicultural empire slipped away as his former allies turned against each other in a series of conflicts known as the Wars of the Diadochi. The fragmentation of his empire underscored the difficulties of maintaining such a vast, culturally diverse realm. Each general governed his territory with a focus on consolidation rather than collaboration, leading to the formation of distinct kingdoms: the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt, the Seleucid Empire in Persia, and the Antigonid dynasty in Macedonia. Despite the division, Alexander's influence continued to shape these regions, and the Hellenistic period that followed bore his cultural imprint. Chapter 12: Hellenistic Civilization and the Legacy of Alexander. Although his empire fractured, Alexander's impact endured through the spread of Hellenistic culture. Greek became the lingua franca of the Mediterranean and Near East, allowing people from diverse backgrounds to communicate, trade, and share ideas. Hellenistic art and architecture, which blended Greek and Eastern elements, spread across his former empire, influencing styles from Egypt to India. The scientific advancements of the Hellenistic period owe much to the intellectual climate Alexander fostered. Cities like Alexandria became centers of innovation, where scholars like Euclid, Archimedes, and Hipparchus made lasting contributions to mathematics, physics, and astronomy. Alexander's integration of cultures created an environment where knowledge could flow freely, laying the groundwork for a civilization